Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles, the great millstone, who are teaching the truth in sincerity. And a shout out to Yakim and Yakwat that are tuning in and listening and doing the work. Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash, Bracha Tum. So, prophecy in the news and as watchmen, where to look at these things. So, the terrorists, Amalek, are doing their shit again, bombing Syria, and of course Syrian air defenses have blocked Amalek's way into Damascus. So here's the missile intercept system, and this happened overnight, last night. And then more over here on RT, as Gomer and all his bands are starting to make their moves towards Idlib and getting into clashes with the Syrian Arab Army.
Talking. Here's your video. Tonight, the war going on between Turkey and Syria has taken a strange turn, with Syria attacking Turkey without firing a single shot. They attacked Turkey today without firing a single shot. How are they doing it? They're doing it by using history as a weapon, by recognizing the Armenian genocide, which they know is going to make Turkish President Recep Erdogan friggin' crazy. It's going to just blow, he's going to blow his stack because of this. He hates that. That's why they're doing it. Here's an explainer first by Rick Sanchez, producer, News with Rick Sanchez producer Joe Ricci, who happens to have a PhD in history. Yeah, we hire some pretty smart people around here. What can I say?
The Syrian parliament has become the latest governmental body to recognize the Armenian genocide. Meanwhile, in the northwest of the country, around Idlib, increasingly dangerous battles rage between Syrian government forces and Turkey's military forces stationed there since October 2019. The move by the Syrian government is almost identical to action taken by the U.S. government late last year, when both the House and then the Senate passed resolutions officially recognizing what happened to the Armenians a century ago as a genocide.
296 resolution affirming the United States record on the Armenian genocide.
Between 1915 and 1923, Ottoman authorities massacred up to 1.5 million Armenians through direct execution, starvation, or abandonment in the Syrian desert. But the U.S. government refused to acknowledge the events as a genocide, given Turkey's important position as a bulwark against the Soviet Union during the Cold War. That all changed when Turkey earned the ire of Washington by moving into northern Syria. Syria follows suit now, hoping to jab Turkey over its overt occupation of Syrian lands. Historically, the move is significant, because although the genocide was carried out by Ottoman authorities, much of it happened on what is now Syrian land. Armenians were driven into the desert or to Aleppo, which became a major hub of deportations from Anatolia. Whatever the reason, Armenians have one more long-awaited acknowledgement of their tragedy. Reporting in Washington, D.C. for the News with Rick Sanchez, Joseph Ricci, RT.
We had to do this story because it's just so fascinating, right? Joining us now, Aram Hamparian. He is the executive director of the Armenian National Committee of America. So, as I understand it, and I think as Joe just kind of aptly explained, what Syria is doing is using your cause as they're weaponizing your cause, sir. Right? Am I wrong?
I would say that preventing genocide is sort of like healing the sick. You do it whenever you can, wherever you can. No political litmus test.
So it doesn't matter.
It's the right thing to do.
Yeah. But you know that the reason that Assad is doing this is because he wants to take a jab at Erdogan.
Sure. I mean, we live in a political world. These types of decisions are made for political reasons. But ultimately, genocide is a crime, not a conflict, and recognizing it is just telling the truth. It's not taking sides.
But it's got to bother you a little bit that the only reason they're taking sides is because they know it's going to be a thorn in the side for their enemy.
Actually, We welcome every country that recognizes the Armenian genocide. It moves one
I
step
can't
closer.
move you off of this, can I?
It's progress. It's like this. If we can heal a child who's sick, maybe the doctor has some ulterior motive, but if that child is healthy at the end of the day, that's the outcome we want. If we can recognize genocide, prevent genocide, punish genocide, every step that we take in that direction is a good step. It means that somebody down the road is not going to be, have this kind of holy hell visited upon them. So the outcome is good.
This is a great conversation, and I like the fact that you're sticking to your guns on this. And I guess I need to go at this from the perspective of Turkey. Is the only way to get your point across, though, on the issue of Armenia, is it the only way to do that to attack Turkey?
Well, let me say this. We had a chance, Armenians within the Ottoman Empire had a chance to have their say. It was until April 23rd, 1915 when they started the genocide, and they wiped us out, and we lost the ability to have a voice inside Turkey.
Right.
And then they passed laws saying you can't even talk about the Armenian genocide within the confines of Turkey. It's Article 301 of the Turkish Penal Code.
Right.
So we were destroyed as a voice. Turks themselves can't talk about it, so we talk about it around the rest of the world.
So what is the likelihood at some point that you would be able to have some kind of reconciliation with Turkey?
I think Turkey will wake up to the fact that it needs to reckon honestly with this crime. They're going to find themselves increasingly isolated, alone on this issue. I think of South Africa maybe in the 1980s. They had a very strong geopolitical position, but found themselves all alone, and then that system collapsed. I think the Turks will find themselves in a similar situation on this Armenian genocide issue, and they'll say, okay, it's worth having a dialogue. The cost of denial is too high for Turkey, and they'll sit down with the Armenians, with Armenia, with diasporans, and say, how do we resolve this issue?
It sounds like you're saying, and I don't want to put words on your mouth, but they are right now on the wrong side of history.
Absolutely. And they know it. And they don't know how to get out of it. But the simple answer is they need to tell the truth. They need to own up.
You're a good guest. You really are. You really understand this topic, and you hold your position firm. Thank you, Mr. Amparian. Appreciate it.
On the wrong side of history, I'm just going to pause for a second here. That's the funny thing. The Edomites, which includes Gomer, by the way, because that is pretty much the majority of them are Edomites, Amalek. Very few Arabs actually exist in that area, so that's an Edomite empire as well. So these Edomites, man, they say that the Ottomans are on the wrong side of history. Well, what do you think America is? It's definitely on the wrong side of history, especially when we look back. But you see, Esau's about to become a myth, amongst us, because will we be telling our children and all that, man? They're going to be saying, hey, is this the man that led kingdoms into captivity, and did all these things? Because Esau's about to become an urban legend. He's not going to be ruling for very much longer. And just the fact that the whore Babylon the Great has lost her, people aren't afraid of it anymore. I mean, there's more images coming out from this incident where they were not welcome in Syria. They were never invited by the Syrian government, and they're recognized as terrorists. Well, there's more footage that's come out now from RNU videos. This is embarrassing to the U.S. military complex. And they were trying to say that these forces were backed up by Assad. No, these are civilians standing up to the U.S. terrorists. I do not see the Syrian Arab army there at all. You did find a few Russian troops, but that's about it. Now this part from the Russian patrol that was there. So the Syrian Arab Army wasn't there, but the Russian patrol was. But these were just residents of the Syrian town.
Смотри, это кто? Индос. Там поехал. Он по дому стреляет куда-то. Там с дома пулемет. Нет, стреляет. Что творят американцы? Бумаги, конечно, бестолковые. Приносят мир. Что он хочет? Нет, не надо, команда не было. Это ты никто ничего не поймет.
So if anything, this is showing the United States firing upon the civilians.
Он еще сзади его облил. Какие дауны они. А вот так что, знаете, почему все...
So it looks like the U.S. totally provoked this incident when they opened fire on the civilians for actually blocking them from coming in.
Ну, F-16 или что там? Вон что-то пошел вниз. Вон он, да.
So you see the United States firing on civilians. So don't let them think that anybody think that it's any different. They were provoking them. Oh, evidence right in the face of that. And more with Turkey and Syria, as you know that this thing's going to escalate. And this one in from South Front of what and you can best believe that this is Ezekiel 38 for sure, because Gomer and all his bands are very well mentioned in there. So here it is.
In February 2020, the Syrian army reached the vicinity of the main stronghold of anti-government forces in Syria, the city of Idlib. This development plunged into shock supporters and the leadership of Idlib armed groups, and became a visual confirmation of something that Western powers and their media structures do not want to admit. The government of President Bashar al-Assad not only survived the 9 years of the bloody war, but also appeared on the winning side. Idlib city is the capital of the Idlib Governorate. It is located 59 kilometers southwest of Aleppo and about 22 kilometers from the Turkish border. The city is divided into 6 main districts: Ashrafia, Hitin, Hejaz, Downtown, Huraya, and Al-Qusur. Before the war, Idlib city was a rapidly growing urban center. From 2004 to 2010, its population grew from approximately 99,000 to 165,000. The majority of inhabitants were Sunni Muslims. Additionally, there was a significant Christian minority that almost completely disappeared by 2020 for obvious reasons. In 2011, Idlib and its countryside became one of the main centers of violence. Anti-government armed groups seized the city for the first time in the same year. The role was played by members of Ahrar al-Sham, a radical Islamist militant group declaring the aim of creating an Islamic state ruled under Sharia law. Ahrar al-Sham gained a wide prominence as the key ally of Jabhat al-Nusra, the official al-Qaeda offshoot in Syria. Their fruitful cooperation continued until 2017, when the relations between the groups became colder. Their funding base started crumbling after militants had suffered a devastating defeat in Aleppo city. This caused a series of contradictions between the former allies that even turned into some local clashes. In 2020, the coalition of Ahrar al-Sham and several other groups armed and funded by Turkey are known as the National Front of Liberation. It still maintains a significant relationship with Jabhat al-Nusra that changed the brand to Hayat Tahrir al-Sham in an attempt to hide its al-Qaeda backbone from the international audience. In February 2012, anti-government groups lost the city to the Syrian army, which launched a large-scale military operation in the area. Idlib once again fell into the hands of militants in April 2015 after the united forces of Jabhat al-Nusra, Ahrar al-Sham, Jund al-Aqsa, and several other al-Qaeda-linked groups had assaulted the city from 3 directions. After this, militants captured another important urban center in Idlib province, Jisr al-Shugar, with a pre-war population of about 44,000 people. Since then, Idlib and Jisr al-Shugar have consistently evolved into the 2 key centers of attraction of radicals in the region. These include both members of various militant groups defeated by the Syrian army across Syria and multiple foreign nationals seeking to join some powerful Middle Eastern terrorist group. This impacted the balance of power within militant groups operating in the region. Ahrar al-Sham lost a large part of its previous influence. As a part of the National Front for Liberation, NFL, it receives additional funding and supplies from Turkey, but the entire alliance is no longer a competitor to Jabhat al-Nusra. The NFL played the role of auxiliary forces in the most recent battles involving Jabhat al-Nusra. Its main attribute is access to a constant flow of Turkish military supplies, including anti-tank guided missiles. Through the NFL, Turkish-supplied weapons regularly appear in the hands of Jabhat al-Nusra. The NFL claims that it has up to 70,000 members. Nonetheless, local sources say the real number of active fighters can be estimated at no more than 25,000. Despite the setbacks suffered in Aleppo City, northern Hama, and southern Idlib, Jabhat al-Nusra remains the most powerful force in greater Idlib. Its main political and military HQs are located in Idlib City. The group also created several weapon depots and equipment maintenance facilities inside the city. Jabhat al-Nusra intentionally places its own infrastructure in a close proximity to civilian targets, using locals as human shields from air and artillery strikes. Large known al-Nusra weapon depots are also located in Khan and Sarmada. The Khan weapon depot is set up near a camp for displaced civilians. On November 20th, 2019, several civilians from the camp were killed when a Syrian army missile hit the weapons depot in the area. A number of smaller weapons depots were moved to the Turkish border area following the militants' withdrawal from Ma'ara al-Numan and Khan Shaykhun. The number of militants fighting under the current brand of Jabhat al-Nusra, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, is estimated at over 30,000. Jisr al-Shugur and its countryside turned into the nest of the Turkestan Islamic Party, another al-Qaeda-linked militant group. It mostly consists of ethnic Uyghurs and other foreigners. The group's ideology declares an aim to create a caliphate in China's Xinjiang region and eventually the entire Central Asia. Meanwhile, they are using Syria's Idlib as a foothold to gain combat experience and resources for attacks in China and Central Asia. Ankara, which uses versions of radical forms of pan-Turkism as a tool to expand its own influence, turned a blind eye to the influx of foreign terrorists to the Idlib de-escalation zone. The number of fighters of the Turkestan Islamic Party with their families is estimated between 10,000 and 20,000. The total manpower of groups operating in Greater Idlib is estimated around 110,000. Nonetheless, a majority of small groups are polarized and demoralized even more than their big brothers. The Syrian army operation in Idlib, which started in December 2019, allowed the Damascus government to retake over 1,200 square kilometers from Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and its allies, and the advance is ongoing. Pro-government forces captured the largest sub-district of the Idlib districts of the province, Sarakib Nahiyat, with a population of about 88,000, and they took control of the crossroads of the M4 and M5 highways. Thus, Idlib groups lost a key logistical hub, which they had used to supply its forces and move reinforcements between northern Latakia, southern Idlib, and northern Aleppo. The loss of Sarakib also exposed the southwestern flank of Al-Is, the main Hayat Tahrir al-Sham strongpoint in southwestern Aleppo. The army diversionary attack in the area immediately turned into a real offensive. Government troops took control of a number of settlements, including the militant stronghold of Al-Is. The Syrian army currently has 2 main priorities. The first is to secure the entire M5 highway which links the cities of Hama and Aleppo. This will allow government forces to freely redeploy troops and equipment just along the current front line. Thus, they will have an additional advantage in maneuverability. The second is to increase pressure on the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham hive, Idlib city, which is now located about 8 kilometers from the active front line. This is an unprecedented situation which has not happened since 2015. All the previous year, the city remained in a permanent safety from any ground offensive by government forces. So, Idlib's current rulers did not bother themselves with creating strong fortifications. The same approach explains why the speed of the Syrian army's offensive increased after it had passed the main defensive line of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and its allies near Khan Shaykhun. The rapid advances of the Syrian army caused a strong negative reaction among the powers not interested in removing the Idlib point of instability, including Turkey. Ankara is an official participant of the Astana format and a state guarantor of the Idlib de-escalation deal. The issue is that Ankara did not comply with the key point of the Astana agreements. It did not separate Turkish-backed moderate rebels from the al-Qaeda-linked terrorists that are excluded from the ceasefire regime. Any such attempt will inevitably reveal that terrorists control over 80% of the opposition-held part of Greater Idlib. Ankara will have to confirm officially that the Syrian army operation against them goes in with the framework of the Astana agreements. This is unacceptable for the Turkish leadership, which has been for a long time using a variety of military and diplomatic measures to prevent the Assad government from retaking the northwestern part of Syria and consolidate its own influence in the areas where Turkish forces are present. Under the Demilitarization Agreement, September 2018, the Turkish army also established 12 observation posts supposedly intended to monitor the ceasefire. Mr. Recep Tayyip Erdogan likely thought by this move he claimed the entire Idlib for his own geopolitical games. In the course of the Idlib operations 2019 to 2020, Syrian forces besieged 5 Turkish observation posts and shelled the Turkish military several times. In response, the Turkish leadership announced that its forces had delivered strong blows to the Assad regime. However, the strikes did not stop the Syrian army advance. This is why the Turkish military has been steadily increasing its military presence along the militant-held part of the Greater Idlib region, including the countryside of Idlib city. According to some reports, up to 1,000 pieces of Turkish military equipment have been deployed in this part of Syria. On February 5th, President Erdogan presented an ultimatum to Syria. He demanded the Syrians to halt military operations against Idlib militant groups and withdraw from Turkish observation posts, abandoning the area liberated from terrorists in recent months. The Turkish leader gave the Damascus government time until the end of February. If Syria rejects the ultimatum, Erdogan vowed to launch a full-scale military action against the Syrian army. This was not the first such threat by the Turkish leadership, and all the previous ones appeared to be empty words. Nonetheless, this time the situation could develop under another scenario. Many will depend on the state of relations among Turkey, the United States, Israel, and Russia. Erdogan will not risk a direct military confrontation with Russia. This will cost too much for Turkey. Nevertheless, if the Turkish leadership is sure that Russia provides no real answer to a full-scale attack on the Syrian army, there will be a strong chance that Turkey will carry out such an attack. The Erdogan government already has an experience of carrying out a direct aggression against Russia. In November 2015, the Turkish Air Force shot down a Russian S-24 fighter bomber in the Syrian province of Latakia. The Kremlin left this action unanswered in the military sphere. After all, the fully-fledged Turkish war with Syria is unlikely because Ankara does not have enough resources for such a move. The more possible scenario is a large military operation by the Turkish armed forces. Even this move would require means and forces that would be many folds larger than those involved in Operations Euphrates Shield, Olive Branch, and Peace Spring. If Erdogan decided to approve this military operation in Syria, it will undermine the already weakened economy of Turkey, undermine positions of Turkey in the region, and significantly complicate its relations with the European Union. Therefore, the Turkish military action will likely take a form of the quasi-military PR action like the U.S. strikes on Syria in 2017 and 2018. The Turkish plans could be undermined by the further collapse of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham's defense in Idlib. Just under 20 days remain until the end of February. Militants appear to be unable to stop the Syrian army breakthrough into the operational depth of their defense, where they have no defensive infrastructure. So pro-government forces have a chance to deliver a devastating blow to militants and at least reach the suburbs of the city of Idlib until the end of the month.
Now I'm going to switch over to the other part because the prophecy of 2nd Ezra 16 also says woe be unto Asia. And, well, you're hearing a lot about the coronavirus and Dabu 7 and Chris Green with Chad Boksam have been reporting on this, so it's pretty good to look there to see what information there is. As you know, quarantine camps are being set up, which you know as FEMA camps. So they could very much use this pandemic as a way of forcing the microchip. So right from Dabu 7, let's get this report.
It appears that the U.S. military is taking this outbreak that is going global here very seriously. There has been an executive order issued that initiated the implementation of the Department of Defense Global Campaign Plan for Pandemic Influenza and Infectious Diseases. This is 3551-13. Now, we don't know all the details of the plan, but we do know that it instructs U.S. military officials to prepare for widespread outbreaks. I briefly touched on this last night on the other stream, talking about how they have 11 bases picked that they're going to start setting up these quarantine stations in. Some they already have that beginning, others they're working on the plans. Then that can expand outside of there. It's interesting because we were looking at the CDC stations and the quarantine stations in their jurisdictions right at the gate when this all started to break loose, and we noticed that in the interior of the country, there are hardly any CDC stations, meaning someone in Colorado would have to be shipped like all the way down to Los Angeles. Now, with doing this, I'm not sure what's going to come of these stations exactly, where people are going to be going and all that, but they're saying they're going to be utilizing their bases, and that the U.S. military is rolling out this global campaign plan for a pandemic. So when they say that, it's not just for here in the United States. It says it in the name. It's a global campaign.
And that's just it, though. So you can see, though, that this military, I mean, what better way to make the mark of the beast prophecy come to pass, right? Globally. Because it is all both small and great. So now more from AMTV with Chad.
Hey everybody, I'm Chad Booksan. This is AMTV, Alternative Media Television, and we have really big news, really big important news, confirmed here by Christopher Green himself, right when the coronavirus started spreading, just from the links with doctors who are working on bioweapon defense for the Chinese Communist government. How this was absolutely, the coronavirus absolutely could have been a leak from the lab, the super lab that was a few miles away from Wuhan. Definitely not from the food marketplace that was in Wuhan. And absolutely just mind-blowing that this was either released intentionally or whatever the case might be. This came out of bio-warfare testing in a super lab. And again, confirmed here by Christopher Green. Now, the Communist government, the World Health Organization, for a long time, they've been downplaying it. They've been lying about the numbers of people sick. They've been lying about how it mutates, how contagious it is. They've been lying how you could contract this deadly disease. And also, on top of that, we know for a fact that this is spreading worldwide much quicker, and it's already here in the United States of America. Now, this is coming straight from the U.S. military. U.S. Northern Command is executing plans to prepare for a potential pandemic of the novel coronavirus, now called COVID-19, according to Navy and Marine Corps service-wide messages issued this week. An executive order issued by the Joint Staff and approved by Defense Secretary Mark Esper this month directed Northern Command and Geographic Combatant Commanders to initiate pandemic plans, which include ordering commanders to prepare for widespread outbreaks and confining service members with a history of travel to China. Now, there also, this document from the Pentagon, the blueprint of this is also planning and preparing for widespread dispersion of the coronavirus and previously unknown diseases. So they're also preparing for something else that they might be aware of, or that might be a bioweapon, or they might know that it's going to appear here in the United States. That might not even be the coronavirus, or it just mutates into something more deadly, and it's airborne. And even Christopher Green reported this earlier, a mask might not even protect you from this. People are concerned that it goes through the pipes, so even in your home, in your drinking water, all we know for a fact that this is much scarier, much worse than we'd ever even imagined. You know, everybody thought this was going to be like SARS or just like a little miniature Ebola outbreak like we see in these countries in Africa, but absolutely a worldwide pandemic. The CDC is saying, look, we're not even prepared for this. First of all, given the fact that there is no natural connection of how this coronavirus even appeared in the human population, and if all of the facts that are pointing to this super lab, pointing to this bioweapon, pointing to these doctors, pointing to the possibility that it came from a super lab in Wuhan, we don't know what this can do. Man-made virus that can easily spread out of control. Honestly, it's like we are in a horror movie. It's like we're literally living in a horror movie. And the U.S. military is getting involved. President Trump also issued orders to find out the exact origins of this. Was this bio-warfare? Did it leak accidentally? You know, there's a lot of things that we don't know right now, but the truth of the matter is right now it's in the United States. Right now it's spreading. It's going to get a lot worse. The military's preparing for it. Again, they're putting quarantine bases all around, you know, airports. And look, even a hint or a sign that you might be you might have the coronavirus, or you might have met with somebody or been in a certain location where it came from. It's not just Wuhan, China. It could be from anywhere that has any infection. They will put you in a quarantine camp. We don't know how bad this is going to get. This is the problem, given the fact that they've been lying the whole entire time. We're so overpopulated. Our immune systems are shot. We are over-medicated. Can we handle a bio-weapon in our system if we can't even, some people die of just a normal flu or just a normal cold? And how quickly it spreads and it mutates and it's airborne. You know, prepare for this. Protect you and your family. 100%. Please do this now. Protect you and your family. Whatever you got to do. Do not rely on the government. Do not rely on anybody except for yourself. So make sure you have food. Make sure you have water. Do whatever you can as far as protection goes. Stay aware. Connect the dots. Be smart. And just be on your toes when you're out and about, obviously. And have supplies at your house. If you don't have supplies, we have them in our own store. We have an online store with food supplies. We have a quarantine box. It comes with food storage for you and your family. That comes with a...
But what they failed to tell you, though, is that the government can seize your property at any time. I mean, they failed to tell you that bit of it, though. And you and I both know they don't want a good crisis going to waste. So, anyhow, you know, this woe be unto what? Unto Asia, Syria, and Egypt, Babylon? Yeah, so you can see, though, that very much so that they're using it and for a worldwide pandemic, which they've created, which the Most High, most of all, is using Esau to create this, because this has been a plan. This prophecy is the plans laid out. So by all means, these prophecies of doom is what they're afraid of, because they know that America is the last kingdom. It's the last Babylon, you know, and it's known as Babylon the Great, because Babylon the Great is that great kingdom which is a culmination of all the kingdoms before it. And once that's gone, that's the end of the Edomites' ruling power. So, you know, the fact that they want to try to get us back into trance, get us back to Christianity, and most of us are leaving it, the fact that we're denouncing it and we're claiming our heritage, you know, yeah, man, they're no longer doing this. But when they took us down, you know, the Renaissance era, you know, iconoclasm and all that, well, just start Revelation 11:9. And they of the people and kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3.5, and shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves. Yeah, because we were in a dead state, and they pretty much, you know, they had finally conquered us, if you will. And they that dwell on the earth shall rejoice over them, make merry, and shall send gifts to one another, because these two prophets tormented them that dwell on the earth. Let's talk about the northern and southern kingdom. You know, the spirit of prophecy. You know, once that was taken out of the earth, you know, they were joyous that they finally got us to no longer remember. But as of 1970, all the way to 2020, 50 years in the making, if you will. You know, us waking up. And after 3 days and a half, the spirit of life from Yahweh Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai, entered into them. And they came and stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. When they see us coming together like we have been, you know, great fear is upon them because of the fact that they know that we are no longer indoctrinated with Christianity, that we've overcome that. They heard a great voice from heaven saying unto them, Come up hither. And they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them. That's talking about when that chariot came forward to come carry us home. They've been seeing a lot of chariots lately, so they know that eventually it's going to be roundup time, but at that same time, the same hour was there a great earthquake, and the 10th part of the city fell, and in the earthquake were slain of men. 7,000, the remnant were affrighted and gave glory to Yahweh Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai of heaven. And what's that talking about? That's talking about the nuclear destruction that causes the third earthquake. You know, the great earthquake. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. And you can see that, you know, just these little things, spontaneous things, the killing of Soleimani, you know, the war in Syria, you know, Amalek attacking Damascus, you know, pretty much, though, at the same time when the kingdom of Damascus ceases, at that same time, it talks about Babylon the Great. So I believe that's also part of the spontaneous thing that happens all in that same hour. And we're getting closer and closer to that hour, this world pandemic. So, like everything else, though, man, you know, we're just going to remain diligent, or we're going to be caught in this. For that, I want to say, Barak the Yahweh, Barak the Yahweh Shai, Ba'Shem Rakakadash, Wa Abba Babal. Brakathum Jehovah elect. Hope everything's been edifying. Shalom.